Hey everyone, it's Kristen. So we are on the third part of this X-Men Alpha Flight versus Loki. Like I said, I found this in my collection and thought I had forgotten all about that story. And it's called The Gift because they have run across, Madeline and Cyclops and everyone that was on the plane to go to the Arctic Circle to study. They're research scientists and stuff. Um, they all have these fantastical powers now. Like Madeline can heal people. This other girl, she can create food and clothing. And this other guy built the structure that they're in, the huge castle-like, fantastical-looking structure. Um, Another guy is granted dominion over animals. And another guy is called Pathfinder, and they don't really explain his power, but I'm assuming he can find anywhere and find anyone. I don't know. So we stopped on Wolverine realizing he never found Snowbird because Kitty asked him, like, did you ever find her? And he's like, no. And then we come across Beastmaster and Pathfinder finding Wolverine when he has found Snowbird and then saying, walk away, basically. Just let her die. And he's like, I'm not going to do that. So, and then we have Rogue in the next page looking like a true Southern belle because, she's from Mississippi. And to me, this is what a Southern belle kind of looks like. I mean, it is the 80s, so it's kind of like an 80s prom dress too, but it's more Southern belle to me. And she asked North Star for a dance, and he refuses. And Walter, Sasquatch, makes a snide remark like, good luck with that. Like, he won't even give friendship to anyone. Like, he's a loner, basically. And Rogue, thinks in her mind, that's not fair because she knows all about him. She knows all the secrets because she, touched him, absorbed him. She knows. So he finally agrees. And Rogue is just having the time of her life because she's never danced before. She's never, been to prom. She never got to have that experience. And so to her, it's super fun. And I can relate. I never went to prom. Not that that's a big deal, really. But I went to a private school that dancing, was not allowed. Yes, that happens. It still exists. Like in the movie Footloose, where they're like, ooh, dancing's bad, no. Anyway, secular music's bad, no. So yeah, I went to a private high school. We didn't have dances. We didn't have prom, so I never got to experience that either. But I mean, really, like, for girls, it's all about the dress. So maybe one day I'll just buy myself a dress like that, just for fun. And figure out where I can wear it. Anyway, I get off the subject. I'm sorry. So, yeah, Talisman has more questions. So she goes to Mr. Ross, and he has gained the power to basically recite from any book that has ever been written or created. Like, he has the power of knowledge. And, like, so any book you can recall that's been written, like, he can basically pull it up and tell you all about it and, recite it. And Loki, we see him, in his palace, and he's like, what the heck? I gave these mortals this gift, these powers, and yet, they're questioning it, and, basically why wouldn't they just accept it? So, in the midst of this feast, party, basically, Wolverine kicks in the door, and they're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And he throws Beastmaster's body on the table, and they're like, what the heck, Wolverine? Which is interesting because Madeline supposedly cured him of his you know, berserker rages, his bestial nature, and yet here's this guy, Beastmaster, he's barely breathing. So Madeline's like, I can cure him, you know, because that's her power. And she's like, where's Pathfinder? And basically he says he's dead. He's flying with the angels, Wolverine says, because he killed him. Which, like I said, is interesting because I thought he was cured of his rages. But anyway, you know, plot hole, but it's okay. But he was also trying to defend his friend, you know, because Snowbird's his friend. I mean, they spent time on the same team and everything, and he knows her really well, and she has the power to transform into any, like, Arctic creature, and she struggles sometimes with the fact that when she transforms, she can't transform back. Like, she has been when she's in one of her states so long, like a wolf or a bear or an owl, it's harder for her to transition back out, like in the beginning, like at this stage in her powers. Her powers get more complicated and she's, you know, more powerful later, but at this point, you know, and he kind of helps her with that because he understands being an animal and yet being a human, so to speak. So they kind of have a little bit of a special bond. Anyway, so he's saying, you know, Snowbird's a creature of magic, and she's dying. And Michael, the shaman, he derives his power from magic, and he's also dying. And his daughter, Talisman, you know, neutralizes magic, and she disrupted the fountain with a touch. So he's saying these transformations have to be magic based, which I think is weird, that because they introduced the X-Men to the fountain as calling it the magic fountain. Maybe they were saying it ironically or something. They didn't know it was actually magic. They were just saying, like, for some reason, you know, like someone who didn't know about, like, someone from medieval times, you know, you pull the thing on a light bulb, just flip the switch and it turns on. They're like, oh my gosh, magic, because they don't understand it. So maybe that's what they were saying when they refer to it as the magic fountain. I don't know, but I just caught that and thought that was interesting. So basically Mr. Ross is like, yeah, I kind of knew about this already. I read about it in the ancient text. This will spread across the globe, and unfortunately everyone, you know, everyone will become like us, powerful, transform, except for people like Snowbird and Shaman, because they are associated with magic. They're doomed. They'll die. So basically an argument breaks out kind of about how, so they can transform the world, bringing into hunger, poverty, you know, because the one guy, you know, he can build castles and palaces and houses, and the one woman, she can create food and clothing. So food, clothing, shelter, you know, basic necessities for a human. And then, you know, Madeline can heal everyone. No more disease, no more dying. Well, people are going to die. Well, actually, I don't know. I don't know if they die, because they don't really talk about that. Anyway, but no more being sick. So they're having this argument about, okay, but at what cost? So basically, everyone associated with magic would die. And Peter, Piotr, is like, isn't that worth it, though? I mean, let's think about this, because I come from poverty. Like, I've seen firsthand what it's like. It's terrible to think that we can rid the world of that. Isn't that worth, like, a few lives? And this is the whole, you know, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of a few, which is dangerous territory, because then you're like, well, whose needs are we going to talk about? Whose needs are the most important? Obviously, the majority, but is that really fair to the people, like, to everyone? Anyway, that's a huge can of worms. Huge can of worms. So anyway, Kitty's like, well, but don't you realize that what will happen? I mean, our friends, like, you know, Doctor Strange, Amanda, Nightcrawler's girlfriend, maybe Storm, because she has that half, sorcery background, as we saw in 160, where she was, she drew on her sorceress heritage to learn magic in Limbo. And, even Ileana, your sister, she's a sorceress now. What will happen to her? And so Kitty's like, I stand with Wolverine. I don't feel like this is right. I don't feel like this is something we can do. So, no. So, you see the two divided. Basically, most of the people are on this side, like, this is worth it. And then you have people over here that are like, no, that's not right. It's not good. It's not a good idea. And so, of course, they fight. I mean, Rachel, she's on the side of this is worth it because she saw every single person she loved die in her timeline, so she doesn't want that to happen. And if they can prevent, death and poverty and disease, then why not? So Professor Xavier's like, quick, get Talisman to the fountain. We need to disrupt its power before it spreads. And so they have this battle and they fight back and forth to get her to the fountain. And Northstar, being super fast, he takes her there, and we find the builder there. And we see actually Aurora there, and she picks up his sketchbook, and he's like, my book. And he confesses a secret to them, because he was the same guy in the beginning on the plane that had his sketchbook out, and he was sketching all these things. And he, when he tried in this new form to draw anything new, he couldn't. He could only copy what he had already drawn. And that's part of this also, is that you lose basically dreams, you lose creativity, you lose innovation. You can, like the lady who can cook, cornucopia, who can make food, she can recreate any recipe, but she can't invent any recipes of her own. She can't make any new fashion designs of her own. She can only recreate outfits that she's already seen. And this guy, he can only build buildings that he's already seen, that he already knows about. It's already done. And so basically they're saying, Talisman saying, you lose part of your humanity, what makes you human, through this process. And Cyclops says, through in this understanding, he's like, well, if this is true, then there's still going to be division. There's still going to be resentment, because you're going to have the people who already have powers, therefore are not really changed by the magic fountain, so to speak. They still retain their creativity, their ability to dream. And those who have been changed, have gained powers, but now can no longer be creative, they might start to resent that they can't be creative, that they can't dream anymore. And the builder guy, Loki, he comes and says, he's like, comes and says, I don't know what you guys are whining about, because now you're better than being human. What do you need with humanity now that you have all these great powers? And what are you whining about? I've given you this great gift. Why can't you just be happy and accept it? And the builder guy is like, but you don't understand. Like, what gave my life meaning wasn't the ability to build, but to create, to be creative. So, basically, what good is your gift if it costs me my imagination, my humanity? And he's like, Loki's like, okay, well, whatever. But not everyone feels this way. Not everyone, shares your objections. I mean, plenty of people, are happy with my gifts. And, he's looking at everyone that he's given gifts to. And then Cyclops brings up the whole, well, there's still going to be division thing. And he's like, well, but okay, you can't force us to accept your gift, because then it's not a gift. See, that's what Cyclops is saying to Loki. And Loki's like, I'm a god. I know what's best for you guys. We've always known what's best for you. You guys are just little people, and we know what's best. Why can't you trust me? And Scott's like, because you're known throughout all creation as the god of lies, and then blast him. And of course, Loki, that makes him super angry. Because he's like, how dare you strike a god, So he calls up these snow giants to defeat the X-Men. And so they fight the snow giants, and Rogue tries to end the battle by absorbing Loki. And of course she can't. Because, I mean, he's a god. And Sam, Mr. Ross, the library guy, he gets hit and by one of the snow giants, and he's down. And Madeline is really worried. She comes over to him, and she's like, at least, well, I can still heal you. But in the panel before that, she says, because Talisman's like, do you really want this kind of world for your kids? Like, a world without imagination, without creativity, where everyone's just kind of the same, where everything is just the same over and over again because no one can come up with anything new. And Madeline's like, you're right. I forgot myself. I reject your gift, Loki. Do you hear that? I want no part of it, and I deny the false god who offers it. And, she goes, and on the next page, Sam is in trouble, and he gets hit, and she's like, okay, well, I can still heal him. And yet Loki takes away her gift because he says, well, didn't you just reject my gift? You rejected it, so I'm taking it back. And she's like, no, you can't do that. Sam will die. And he's like, so what if I care? I can't heal him. Basically he's like, Loki's like, all you have to do is ask, and I'll give you back your power. And so Madeline's like, please help me save him. And Loki's like, of course. All you have to do is ask. And you're like, oh, okay, he's a nice guy. But no. Then he grabs Madeline and says, basically, don't ever defy me again. And he's like, don't ever defy me again. You're mine now, and you have to do my will. So she does heal Sam, but, and the X-Men and Alpha Flight are like, Loki, your snow giants have been defeated, and it's over. And Loki's like, is it though? Because Madeline has a change of heart. She has accepted the gift, and she wants everyone to accept the gift. Isn't that true, Madeline? And Madeline's like, yes. And, Loki's like, I am the victor here. I am the one who won. And here come the Elder Gods. They're really, really mad. And they say, we who live above in shadow, who are to Asgard as its immortal sons and daughters are to the realms of men, have witnessed and judged and found thee wanting. Thy petition is denied. So he doesn't get what he wants, which I'm assuming was he wanted to be a god, like even more of a god than he already is. And, they're like, our terms were simple, a deed of goodness, but freely given. And Loki's like, I did that. And the god says, well, okay, but when they rejected your gift, said, no, we don't want it, you tried to force it on them and take away their freedom. How is that goodness? How is that a gift? And so Loki is really mad, and so he prepares to take revenge on the X-Men and Alpha Flight. And the gods say, you will not harm them, and you will pledge that you will not harm them, like on this plane or any other plane. They're free to go. And if you break that promise, we'll come back and you'll incur our wrath. And so he says in this panel, I so swear. So basically he's saying that, okay, and he even says, my word hath been given, and contrary to popular belief, I shall not be forsworn. Meaning, he won't go back on his word. But he's like, you have made an enemy this day, and whose reach is as long as his memory, and who prides himself on returning blow for blow in full measure. So basically he's saying, just watch your back, because someday I will figure this out. Someday, I will pay you back for what you've done, what you've cost me. Basically he takes back all the gifts. Puck returns back to, his normal state. They lose their powers. Cyclops' blasts activate again. Wolverine's a beast again, so is Sasquatch. Aurora has 2 personalities again. And he asks them one last time, he looks at especially the tortured souls and says, okay, last chance to accept my gift, and they reject him. And he says what all villains love to say, fools. I've noticed that villains, like in Disney movies and, comic books and stuff, they say that a lot, fools. Anyway, so he leaves, gifts are gone, Shaman and Snowbird are healed, they're doing good. North Star takes off because he's like, there's nothing left for me here because my sister hates me, and so why should I bother? Rachel takes off because she's just kind of being a spoiled child. Scott goes after her. They have a little bonding moment. She still doesn't tell him who she is, but he's like, you remind me of someone, that sort of thing. And so, but she's like, I'm not going to tell him still. So anyway, I just thought that was interesting. Like I said, Loki versus the X-Men. It's not something you hear about a lot. In fact, it's something you hardly ever hear about. So I just really wanted to do that one because, like, with all the hype around, the Loki Disney Plus TV show, I thought, why not? Because it has to do with Loki and X-Men. My favorite. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that video. And actually, speaking of that video, our next video is another Loki versus the X-Men comic book. Like I said, I forgot about the first one, and then I forgot about this one. And this one happens almost, after that, and you'll see why. Anyway, it's really cool. It's the saga of Storm, Goddess of Thunder, which is really cool because Storm's one of my favorites. And so hopefully you'll watch that. And I will see you next time. Bye.